regularly scheduled dimwittery to bring you a special guest who actually knows what he's talking about. It's just this way at the Dim Carnival.
Welcome everybody back to the Dim Carnival. I'm Steve.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Robbie.
Ooh, what's up, Robbie?
Not much. Sitting in my bedroom, drinking some cold brew and talking to you fellas.
Oh, nice. I've got a
Fantastic.
vodka and I don't even know what I'm mixing this with. Lemon lime something?
I did that last night. And that's, yeah. So I'm also drinking a CBD ginger beer to not feel like shit.
Nice. Well, so listeners, you can hear we got a special guest with us this episode. This is Robbie. He runs the Twisted History Instagram account, and we connected over Instagram. I was trying to think about how I even found your Instagram feed, man. I think I was just browsing, and I saw a picture of. I recognized Jamie Madrox immediately, who to me looks like a 12-year-old. Little tiny baby
holding a box up or whatever.
Okay, no, I saw that one too, where he's holding up like his Super Friends, like on Christmas morning or something.
Yeah.
I just saw this old, a very old picture of Jamie Madrox, and I was like, holy shit, that's Jamie Madrox as a child. What? And I clicked through, immediately followed, and just have really been enjoying your account ever since I found it. And so, yeah, we connected on Instagram. I invited Robbie onto the show, and just really, really stoked to have you here, man. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been fun. I think I don't even know how I found you guys. I just searching around, I think. I think for a minute I was really looking for a good, like, Juggalo podcast to listen to. And there's a handful, but they vary in quality wildly. So I found your guys and immediately liked it because I kind of related to, I guess, you guys seem like reasonable adults. And
allegedly.
Yeah. You weren't, I don't know. I'll just keep it, like I said, they vary in quality wildly. And I liked what you guys were doing. So I started kind of just plowing through the episodes. And then now I'm at the point where I'm just trying to listen to them kind of in sequence with the stuff I'm doing on my Instagram. So it's kind of, I guess we should discuss what that is even.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, let's start right there. That's a great place. So if you want to tell us a little bit about your project, and kind of the background of how you got started on that.
Totally. So basically, I'm a big Twisted fan. At this point, I'd probably say they're like my favorite musical group or whatever. But I started getting kind of frustrated, I guess, because there's not a lot of good content related directly to them online. There's like, if you look into like bios or like fan things, it's pretty much always through the lens of ICP and their relationship with them. It's not super directly Twisted based. And there's not, like they don't have a book. There's no behind the paint. There's no, like, there's not just really a source to go to find, you can find really, really good websites for ICP stuff, but not really for Twisted stuff. And I was annoyed because I was doing all this deep dive research and like having to go to like, spend hours and hours on like web archives or, the Wayback Machine and just like digging through everything. And so I figured, if I'm annoyed that this doesn't exist, I guess I should just make it. So
wow.
I Instagram didn't necessarily feel like the best place, but it felt like the best place to reach people. Like, you can throw hashtags together and get people to see it better than you could with like a website or a blog or something. So, yeah.
I just think that's okay. So that's really impactful for me because we, Steve and I and Bill, we all have kind of a similar history. to these bands of having stepped away from them for a long time. And this project was specifically for us to kind of reconnect with that music and that those feelings that the music used to inspire in ourselves, and learn to appreciate it maybe as more like older, decent people, if we could claim that title.
Yeah,
decent
totally. I
human
get what you're
beings.
saying.
And I will say that, yeah, man, like I just don't, what you were sharing on Instagram to me was brand new. I had never seen any of that stuff. And so I could chalk that up to just being ignorant or like not being part of the scene for a long time. But it's exciting for me to hear that you had that same experience of like not really seeing this stuff or having it be out there. And
yeah, it's especially the older stuff, like the like House of Crazy stuff and whatnot.
yeah,
That stuff is like scarce information, and I don't know if it's because like, you know, like I don't know how deep you've dug into like YouTube or whatever, but like you can find like Carnival of Carnage era shows in full, you know, and you just can't find that kind of stuff for Twisted and House of Crazies as readily. And so I wanted to at least compile it and, you know, put it all in one spot because it deserves to exist, you know?
yeah, absolutely. And I don't know any other. I mean, I guess I don't use Instagram in the right way, but I don't follow any other accounts that are doing what you're doing either, where it's not just images and music and videos, but you actually write out the content or the history, and have good information, that go along with those posts so that it's actually like something active that you're doing.
Yeah, totally. And I've done this with a few things in the past, not to this level, like not created accounts and stuff, but like right after like Prince died, I kind of started going back through his discography and like kind of writing little reviews more or less of all his albums and stuff. And people liked it, and I had a lot of fun doing it. And so I did it with like the band AFI, like just random stuff that I was like kind of in the same way that you guys are doing. Like, why don't I go back and look at this thing that I used to love and kind of stepped away from? And it's just really fun as a writing project. So the problem is, so history on me, I was a stand-up comedian for about 5 years. And so my personal Instagram and social media has just a ton of people from that. And I don't know if you've met, you know, a lot of stand-up comedians, especially in the amateur level, but they are judgmental pieces of trash. So I didn't as much as I wanted to do something kind of Twisted related or Juggalo related or whatever, I didn't want to do it there because I didn't want to deal with the comments or, you know, just, I don't know. It just didn't seem fun to have to wade through all those people's opinions. So that's why I created I was like, you know, I'm just going to make this fun for me. I'm going to make a whole new thing. And that's why I started the page instead of just doing it in my own, you know, personal social media accounts. And I think that's been a lot better because it kind of is a blank slate. It's all in one spot. It's not mixed with pictures of my cats or, you know.
Right.
And yeah, so yeah, it's been a blast.
That's awesome, man. So like, you mentioned the Wayback Machine and other things, and actually, it's funny. Actually, through this podcast, somebody and our Instagram account, somebody linked me to a YouTube video of the first ICP show that I ever went to.
I saw that on your Instagram, and you were on stage in the video.
Yeah. So I you know, somebody said it was on YouTube, so I looked it up and I immediately skipped to the very end and found the part where I jumped up on stage. I was up in the front row, up against the stage for the entire show, so I was like the first person up, and I just completely lost my mind. Like, I was 19 years old or whatever, and I was a lot more aggressive than I remember. I thought in my mind, you know, I put my arm around Violent J lovingly, and he kind of held the microphone over to me. But in the video, you could clearly see me like just bum rush him and basically knock him over and grab the mic. I was going to a lot of hardcore shows in those days, so I thought it was maybe appropriate behavior.
Sure. Also a thing where like hardcore shows, you would be handed the mic.
Exactly.
Yeah. It was like an ICP show.
Right. It's a normal thing.
Right.
But I'm curious. So like, how did you find all this? What to me seems like really obscure content, flyers from shows and all kinds of cool stuff, videos.
Yeah, various places. I mean, so basically, similar to you guys, like I was really in that world when I was younger. And then as I got older, kind of a combination of a few things. I started caring more, I guess, what people thought about what I liked. And it, like, being in like later high school, it was very uncool to be into like Juggalo stuff. So I kind of gravitated towards other things. And then also the music, in my opinion, took a dip, at least on ICP's side. I stopped being into it as much. And so I took probably like a 10-year break from paying attention to any of that stuff. Outside of like, a new album would come out, I'd give it like a cursory listen, or I'd, watch The Gathering infomercials or whatever with friends, and like under the pretense of, isn't this funny and stupid, but somewhere deep down I loved it. And then when I finally kind of came around to like, hey, maybe I like this stuff and I like want to spend time getting back into it or whatever, I just, searched around. Like, it starts on a very surface level where I'd like listen to the albums I'd missed, and then second go around, I want to see some shows from these tours. They're all on YouTube. I'll look into that. Third go around, it's like, what interviews can I find from this time period, or, whatever. And like, what the t-shirts look like for that tour. And then over time, just kind of go down that rabbit hole deeper and deeper, and, find little nooks and crannies of stuff. Like, if, the Wayback Machine or whatever, like if you search twisted.com on the Wayback Machine, for instance, the older pages don't load. They're just not there. But if you go to like fan sites, they will link to the old twisted.com, and then you can take that link and like just weird little fucking maze stuff that
Sure. What like, a trip.
Yeah, it's mostly been just because I'm bored, at work or whatever, and digging around the internet. But once it's kind of like I remember the little clues and hints and like how to, take this door to get to this, whatever. So going back to try to find it all, it's all kind of in my memory. But yeah, and that's kind of the point, I guess, is that it's annoying that it's that hard to find all that stuff, Yeah. I kind of wish it was more readily available. So if I can kind of take, years of my just like free time digging and put it somewhere where people can see it, I think that'd be, it'd be something I wish existed. And also, I don't know how much you've been keeping up on like modern Twisted stuff, but like, they did the Warped Tour, their new record sold really well, and it was on radio and stuff like that. And so I imagine there's in a version of what I hope is happening, there's new people that, are just learning about them, and it's cool. Like if I was starting, for instance, and there's this band I just found out about that's been around for 20 years, and they've got, their Spotify page has, 25 albums on it or something, it's like, gee, that's a lot to fucking try to dig through. So I want to kind of give context there of like, okay, well then this happened and this happened, and I don't know, tell the story.
Absolutely, man. That's fucking awesome. That's so rad. How do you feel? What's your perception of how the reception has been by the fan community?
It's been awesome, honestly. Like, I think I started like a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, and kind of just, like I said, for myself, because I thought it would be fun to do. And then I started hashtagging the posts, with just hashtag Twisted, hashtag Juggalo, whatever, whatever is relative to the post. I don't want to put, too much in there that's just to get people to see it. I'd rather, because like what I've noticed is like if you put, for instance, like hashtag Insane Clown Posse or ICP, surprise, surprise, you get a lot more views and a lot more likes because more people are following that hashtag. But I've been trying not to, do that unless it's relevant to the post. Mm-hmm. But the followers grew pretty quickly. I think when I started it, it was pretty slow. And then I got to a point where I was at about 100-ish. And I said, okay, like it'd be cool if I could get to 200 followers before I, wrote the review of Most Tasteless, the first Twisted album. And I haven't even gotten there yet, and I'm up to like 265 or something like that. So it's grown awesome. Faster than I expected. I really didn't know what to expect. But yeah, it's been a lot of positive stuff I've noticed. And I don't know, I'm curious if you guys have the same experience, and if it's something that you don't want to talk about publicly, maybe we can, I don't know, edit or whatever. But like the further I go into things people know more about, the shittier comments I get. And by shitty, I don't mean like mean-spirited or negative. I just mean of poor quality and incorrect. Where like when I was talking about all the House of Crazy stuff, that information is pretty cut and dry, and not a lot of people pay a lot of attention to it, I don't think. And then as I'm getting more into the early Twisted stuff and like the Most Tasteless era and things like that, I'm getting just a lot more comments of people saying like, oh, this is the facts, but like it just is the weirdest fake information I've ever heard. Like someone told me today that like, not to get too specific in case they hear it, I guess they're probably a nice person, but they basically was just like told me about this version of an album that they have that there just absolutely does not exist. And like, I don't know if they made it up or if they think they have it, or like, I have no idea what they're talking about, but I'm just like, no. So
it's like those people that think that they owned the Boba Fett original Kenner action figure with the firing rocket pack.
Right.
That's not an obscure enough
never
reference.
Produced.
Yeah, right.
I've seen that Netflix toy documentary.
Nice.
But yeah, totally. It's stuff like that where like someone told me today that their uncle had a copy of Most Tasteless where they're wearing like orange hoodies on the cover instead of black hoodies, and it's like, no, that doesn't exist. And what are you looking at? Like, just weird stuff like that.
Nintendo also.
Yeah, God knows, but yeah, so far nothing negative has been feedback, which I think is super good because there's so much drama in that world these days that I'm kind of waiting for there to be negative feedback. I don't know how familiar you guys are with the quote unquote beef or the split and all that, but like there are a lot of juggalos who absolutely hate Twisted now, and I'm definitely waiting as I get further and further into the history to start getting a lot of just hateful comments as I approach those situations, and I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but I kind of feel like it's inevitable, especially as my opinions kind of skew that direction. Like if I'm writing about an album that people think sucks because it's on Magic Ninja as opposed to Psychopathic, I'm probably going to have a good opinion of that album, and I'm waiting to get all the fuck Twizzlers, etc. Because it is out there.
Yeah, I have seen some negative stuff, which really surprises me, because we don't know much. I don't know much, at least. I can't speak for Bill and Ryan, but I don't know much about their beef, and I've seen things here and there. I've read a little bit of stuff, blurbs on Twitter, but I just kind of don't care because I just love both groups and the music, and my history is my history with it, and if anything, it just makes me sad.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
But what I've been seeing, following some different folks on Twitter is, and it kind of going a little bit back what you were saying about some of the hate that can start getting spread, is that the worst of the worst as far as Juggalo groups go are apparently on Facebook.
Yeah, I'd say that's true.
Yeah, and 'cause I've just read some really funny threads of people like, I can't believe these people on this Facebook group said this, and this is how they're treating me, and they'll show screen caps. And one fellow I follow on Twitter, and he takes lots of pictures of Psychopathic record groups and some other hip hop acts, and also wrestling in the indies. And I forget his name, but I was just reading a thread about how he got kicked out of a Facebook group the other day because there was a juggalo on there that had a swastika. And I don't know if it was a picture, and it was a picture of the person that was in the background, or if it was tattooed on him on his shirt. I don't remember the context of where the swastika was. And so he was like, that doesn't make sense. And that, swastikas and hate and racism doesn't fit in the Juggalo world at all. And he got kicked out of the group.
Wow.
And I was really tripping out on that.
Did he post screenshots? He said that's all he said. He was pretty mild mannered about it and polite.
I mean, I'm probably making it sound a little more mild mannered. But no,
Sure.
he didn't post any screenshots of it. He was upset about being kicked out of the group.
Yeah.
And especially for the reasons why. He's
Totally.
like, that person should have been kicked out of the group, not him for
Yeah.
complaining about it. And so,
Yeah, that's been something that's been kind of I'm starting to learn to. I'm gonna have to figure out how to navigate. Basically, is like someone commented on a post of mine last night, and the thing that they commented was mostly gibberish. It was well-intentioned gibberish, I think, but it was just like poorly spelled or whatever, and a lot of grammatical errors, and just it was hard to make out what they're trying to say. But it seemed nice, like well-intentioned. So I was like, oh, I'll go check this person's page out, see who they are. And the first thing on there was just this like extremely transphobic meme. Like not just like a joke, but like just basically saying like this is bad, and the Bible, and the R word, and just a lot of like really, really a lot in one post. And I was like, oh yeah, there is crossover, I guess is what I'm saying, in a lot of these things, and I'm gonna have to learn to, politely ignore people that I come across, or start fights. But I don't really think the page is where I want to start those fights necessarily.
yeah.
I think we've been pretty lucky in that respect. Like our listeners, and at least the listeners that engage with us, have all been pretty positive. Actually, it's been almost exclusively positive. And I would say the harshest criticism within this topic of this discussion that we've gotten is people emailing us and say like, we get it, guys. Like, you guys are from California. You guys are, leftists or whatever. Like,
Right.
You don't need to mention every time they say the F word or the R word or whatever. But, that's who we are. Like, that's just us. And so we're going to mention it. So, it's one of those things.
Yeah, I can't help but mention it, because if I'm sitting there praising something and we're like critiquing it, like how do you not point it out? I mean, I feel like we've gotten more where like, oh yeah, and then in this great song there's the F word or the R word, and we don't harp on it maybe as much as we did in the beginning, but we do still continuously point it out, like, yeah, there it is. Yep, there it is.
Well, and at first when you're reintroducing yourself to it, it's jarring to hear those things.
Yeah,
it is
definitely.
And you get a little desensitized, which, what is that, good or bad? I don't know if it's either necessarily, but yeah, I mean, I know when I went back and started listening to this stuff again, there was a lot of stuff that I was just like, oh my God, I don't like that one bit. And then, now I've heard that song 100 times in the last couple of years, and it's just part of it, I guess. And like I said, I don't know if that's good or bad, but it is part of it for sure.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and that's a tough one. It reminds me of going to San Francisco every day to go to work, and like it, and I work in like social work, and so I have this proclivity to actually care about the people around me, and even like I've seen San Francisco change so much over the years, where like every time I saw homeless people and people shooting up, I felt super bad. And your heart hardens on this stuff sometimes. It just does. I mean, the constantly seeing it does make it where you're just like, God, I'm just trying to get to work, and I'm just going to step over this dude shooting up and not even hit, and
Totally.
And it sucks. But it's just human nature, I guess. I mean, I'm not saying that it's okay. But sometimes you just feel like you're also like helpless, and there's not really much you can do. And it's kind of what we were talking about when we first started doing this project, where it's like, these groups say a lot of problematic stuff, and like we're either going to have to say that we can coexist with that and still love what we love and point out what we don't, and just go from there. And I think we've made our peace with it.
Yeah.
we're always waiting for this magical album where none of it's on there. We're always like,
totally.
And in the future we're going to reach this album, because I know they say it less and less, but we just haven't reached that spot yet.
Yeah, that's a tough one, especially with those guys with ICP and some of the homophobia stuff, where it's just like it's so deeply rooted, and you can tell that they think they've gotten better. But then they'll just say something where you're like, God damn it, man. Like, what do you, like, I don't know. It seems like every time, like Violent J wants to prove a point, about anything. It just goes straight to like if you saw a guy sucking a dick, or like it's just like, why every point you have to make is homophobic? What is this?
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's at some point, I guess it becomes like your weird old uncle or something, where you're just like, God damn it, Jay.
Yeah.
This again.
Yeah.
You
That's a
know-
good way. That's a good way to think of it.
Since we're kind of on this topic, I wanted to bring up, Twisted using the N-word.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's, going back, I forgot when we had like started this project again, and that was, out of all the things, hearing the R word, the F word, which are bad, I think hearing these white fellows dropping the N word so casually, and it not being from the context of them being racist, and it's just like part of their vernacular from their community and culture, and still it's jarring to me and shocking. I don't necessarily want to ask you, does it make you feel that way too? But what I was more like kind of
I think it's cool. I think it's very cool. No, I'm just kidding.
But I was kind of like, I noticed that it seems like, their early stuff, they definitely were doing it more. They're not doing it so much when they're rapping with ICP, because ICP doesn't do that. And then, like, I've been super into Man's Myth and Mutant lately, because those are my last albums I stopped listening to Twisted.
Okay.
And I have a couple albums after that, but I don't even know what they're called, and I don't remember a song off of them. But I still listen to those other two, and they don't use the N-word at all on either of those albums.
No, they stopped. Freak Show is the last Twisted album that has it.
Okay.
And
so
then,
I was going to ask, because they don't. I was going to see, did they ever do it in the future? And if they
No.
okay.
Actually, I was going to say, because I was listening to, I think when you guys talked about Most Tasteless, and I think it was Bill suggested that maybe when they left Psychopathic, they got back into it or whatever. And that's not the case.
Okay.
They did not pick that back up. The story there actually is from an interview with Monoxide at some point, semi-recently, because an interviewer asked them about it. And he said basically that when they started, that was just kind of how they talked. Like, they were dudes from the east side of Detroit, and that was how people talked there, And then when they started being more of a national act and touring and stuff, they would talk to fans who would be like, "Oh, we think it's so cool that you say this, blah, blah," and took it the wrong way. And I don't know if he was implying that they took it in a racist way, or if they just sounded really ignorant, or what it was but it turned them off and made them realize, like, oh, we're not on the east side of Detroit anymore. Like, we're talking to more people than that, and they don't come from where we come from. They don't understand the context here. We got to stop, because it's a bad look, basically.
Yeah.
And so that's why they kind of never did that again. But
that is very refreshing to hear.
Yeah, it was a relief when I heard that. That's to me, I mean, that's obviously the worst thing about those early records, in a lot of reasons, or for a lot of reasons rather. A, because it sucks to hear, like, it just, and I'm not from there either, I'm not from the east side of Detroit. I don't want to necessarily comment on it and say whether or not they have the right to do that. It's different time periods, different, class stuff, the context is not mine, so whatever. But boy, does that suck to be like, oh yeah, I really like this thing, check this song out, or whatever. Especially, like I was saying, with how their fan base is expanding through like things like the Warped Tour and things like that, where it's like, those albums are on Spotify. Like, are these people going to go back and listen to, Most Tasteless or Freak Show, and is there going to be a controversy, or things like that? Like, it aged so poorly that part of me is always kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, where like the right person hears it and goes like, these guys are canceled, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it is extremely refreshing, and I was really glad to hear that, like, the reason that they stopped wasn't because, like, they were told to or whatever. It was because they legitimately were like, oh, people don't understand the context of this. We we're giving them, you know, ammunition to say things they shouldn't say, so we should stop. So, yeah, I thought that was cool. I think, but like I said, it's part of it. It's not my history, I guess. So it's not for me to say shame on you, but, it sucks.
Yeah.
Especially when it gets more, there's some stuff where it's like gratuitous a little bit. Like I'd say for the most part on like the Twisted albums, it's kind of just like when I was a kid, it didn't even strike me because it was just in my head. That was how rappers talked. And that was, you know, being a suburban white kid and not really understanding the context at all. And then I think that's the way it kind of plays on something like Most Tasteless or Freak Show. When you get into some of the like Psychopathic Riotous material, it starts to feel a little bit, I'm trying to think of the right words for it, almost a minstrel showy in a way.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, yeah.
Which is, some of that stuff's hard for me to listen to even as a huge fan because it's like, it's almost, they're doing a character that kind of grosses me out.
Yeah, we really struggled with that. We talked a lot about that in the early episodes about not wanting to criticize them because like you were saying, it wasn't our perspective. It wasn't our life, and criticizing folks and understanding that things like class can bring people together and build a community or a kinship that it probably isn't necessarily appropriate for somebody like me who grew up really privileged to deliver commentary on.
Totally.
But still understanding like it's problematic, you know, when you're talking about, like you said before, like you're on a national dialogue, then that's something I'm a little bit more inclined to give my opinion on, I guess.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's ultimately why it changed, just because, like, I don't know, I'm glad that they thought it was a fight that was not worth fighting. I guess that's my ultimate take on it, is that, like, if they had really doubled down and been like, well, people don't understand and that's fine. Like, we are who we are. Like, I don't know, that would be a little harder to swallow than the way it turned out. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. If I could go back and erase that from all the albums, I absolutely would. The other thing is, it shows it can be uncomfortable because, like, did you guys listen to the first Blaze Your Dead Homie album, One Less G in the Hood?
We did, yeah.
Okay, and there's a song on there called Juggalo Anthem, which the chorus is just basically N-words to the anthem like this. And that is a staple of his live shows. And he doesn't say it on stage, but boy, do all the white people in the crowd. And it sucks.
Yeah.
Oh, man, yeah.
Especially because, like, the version on the album of that song, like, the first thing you hear is Violent J saying "Killers do the anthem like this."
Right.
And so it's just like, come on, why don't you just do that? Just like, why did you need to insert this instead? But I don't know.
You know, we live in such a progressive bubble in California. Like my friends or my associates, when they hear Ninja, they criticize that because they understand that it's a placeholder for another N-word.
Totally.
And so they even think that that's inappropriate. And so, like, that's how far to the left we are out here, I guess.
Well, and I'm in Portland, Oregon, so it's not much different.
Yeah. As
far as, like, you know, liberalism and stuff goes. But yeah, and I that also, I mean, like, the Ninja thing kind of does sound. I don't know if it's offensive as much as it's corny to me. Because it's just like, you don't need a placeholder. Just don't say it.
Right.
Like, just say dude or something. Like, I don't know. It's just funny to, like, somewhere, like, I picture somewhere, like, a meeting that happened where they're like, we gotta say it, but we aren't supposed to. Like, what can we do? Oh, I guess, you know, this sounds similar. Like, it's just like, come on, man. Is that necessary? But, you know, I don't know.
Right. Well, speaking of the current, so I don't know, you know, Steve's a little bit more familiar with closer to contemporary Twisted than Bill and I are. But I'm curious if you have a take on, I'm really interested to know more, and I just assumed we would get to it as we covered the albums. We would look more into the history and the evolution of the relationship between these two bands and their individual unique sets of fans. But I'm curious if you have a take on what the current state is of Twisted and their fans, and whether there is a perception, because right now I feel like they are very heavily in ICP's shadow in terms of where we are at in the content. With the last Twisted album we did was Green Book, and we on that episode we talked a lot about how I felt like in the music that Twisted was really starting to push back and kind of assert their own individuality from ICP. And so I'm curious if you have any thoughts about how things evolved or how things are now.
It's interesting. Real quick side question. That episode, I believe, I haven't listened to it yet, but I believe I saw that it was like 28 minutes. Is that accurate sounding?
Yeah, it was probably one of our shorter ones, yeah.
Okay. Did you just like hate it and just go like, we hate this and move on, or?
Oh, I love that album. No.
Oh, okay. That's my favorite Twisted album, actually.
It's up there for me. Part of what we were doing is, I think at that point, we weren't going to cover Twisted albums as in depth as we do ICP albums.
Yeah, totally.
And so we were just doing the entire album in one fell swoop.
Right, we didn't do it track by track.
And so I probably had the most to say because there's so many great songs on that album, and I adore that album. But yeah, that probably definitely was a shorter one.
I just saw it and was like, "Ooh, man, I'll get there when I get there." But are they just gonna roast this for 20 minutes and move on? Or
I think that's one of those ones where like we might have come across a little bit more critical of it than we actually felt.
Well, like I said, I haven't heard it, so I don't know if you did or not. But I just saw that length and was like, "Oh, I just got through 5 episodes of Amazing Chuckle Brothers that are an hour and a half each, and now we got 28 minutes on this one."
Right.
Yeah, I think out of all of us, I probably listened to Twisted the most, and I started listening to them more. There was a point where Bill, Ryan, and I had all lived together in the city, and when they moved and I stayed in the city, I got way into Twisted and newer ICP music, and Ryan had not been listening to it very much at all at that point, at least nothing new. I think you did get the 6th, or Hell's Pit, you were saying at one point, Ryan, but,
correct.
But, I still think that we're all, I think this is fair to say, we're all still much bigger ICP fans than we are Twisted.
Mm-hmm.
Although
that's the show.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think there is certainly new love for Twisted, and also like ABK and Blaze Your Dead Homie. I mean, I didn't ever pay attention to them unless they were just on an ICP album, even though I had Blaze Your Dead Homie's album, and I didn't even realize I liked it. and I'm finding, especially like I said, I cannot believe how much more I'm liking Man's Myth this time, because I loved it so much in the past, but just so many years went without listening to it, and I'm listening to it now, and I'm just like, I cannot believe how much I love this album. And Twisted is definitely moving up where they've like landing in a place of so much more respect that, and at least in my eyes, they've pulled out of ICP's shadow, where in the past I didn't give a shit about thinking of it that way.
Right, and that kind of, I guess, circles back to the original question, which is, let me reframe it because I almost forgot what it was. It was basically you're asking, as the evolution has gone on, have they kind of pulled out of ICP shadow and had their own fan base, more or less?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
what I think about that?
I assume that's the case, yeah, but just curious what your take is on that.
I don't know. It's impossible to go back and like rewrite history or whatever, but like, I don't know if you're aware, but around the time of Green Book actually came out on 2 labels. It was a joint effort between Psychopathic and Magic Records, which was to be Twisted's new label in 2003, I think that was. So at the time, Twisted was going to make Magic Records. They were taking Tom Dubb, who was just like a roadie, basically, worked at Psychopathic, and he was going to be their new manager. And they were going to start their own career, basically do what they're doing now, but in 2003. And there's a lot of drama where, like, I think this guy Tom Dubb potentially stole a lot of money from Psychopathic or something, or like there's
Tom Dubb has a book, right?
Yeah,
I saw it on Amazon. You haven't read it, I guess?
I have, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's it really feels like he wrote it on the Notepad app on his phone. It's not good, but there is some cool information in there. It's interesting at points, but he gets really into the day by day of touring. So it'll just be like, then we played Philadelphia. The show was pretty good. This happened the next night, and it's just like, okay, I can't listen to 5 tours, or not listen to, but read just the in-depth, like what you thought of every show on the tour. But yeah. So anyways, not necessarily recommended, but check it out. But yeah, so I would have liked to have seen what happened if that hadn't gone so poorly. Like maybe if they had started with, like now they've got their manager George, who seems smart and like good at business and good at the music business. If they had done that in 2003, I would have been really curious where we'd be at today, because I think a lot of the themes of the Green Book and of that time in general were trying to kind of break out of that shadow. Yeah. Like there's the song Frankenstein, which is basically about that. There's the chorus on, I think, the first song even. I'm trying to think of the exact word. It's like, do you relate to the paint, or is it the words of the music that you claim to hear, something along those lines, where I think that they really were starting to have a little bit of animosity towards the fact that they were seen as, ICP Part 2, or, part of a larger thing that wasn't themselves.
Yeah.
And apparently the conclusion to that whole time period was that ICP and Alex Zabas at the time just decided to make them dons at Psychopathic, so like shareholders basically, or whatever, and partners instead of artists on the label. And probably with that came more money and probably more say in the direction things would go. And apparently that was, enough to bring them back and kind of end that whole chapter for the next 15 years or something. And so, yeah, personally, I kind of wish that hadn't happened. I kind of think it would be interesting to see what their career would be like if they had had an opportunity to run it themselves, to be, hey, we had this little period where we were, proteges, and then we moved on, and we've had this, because musically they did, like if you listen to all the albums, like you said, like Man's Myth and Mutant, and then everything after that, like there will be like maybe a song with ICP, maybe not a song with ICP. It's they're not, every song is not saying Juggalo 100 times. They definitely like went their own creative path, but I think because of the label and because of the loyalty that comes with that label, they just never got out of that fan base. And not that they needed to, or not that they, not to like disrespect Juggalos or whatever, but I would have been interested to see what would happen if they had opened up to a wider audience when they were younger, because they kind of are now a little bit, like I said, doing the Warped Tour, and Magic Spells off their new album was on some, modern rock radio stations and stuff like that. But they're 45 or whatever,
Right.
So they're not going to be breaking down the doors as this cool new band. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think they're like unhappy with what, with what their career has been, but I think it would have been really interesting to see what they could have done if they, because, they were friends with Eminem before they were, signed to Psychopathic. Like they had relationships with people in the wider world of music. And I think that they are really talented. So I think it would have been, they would have had opportunity, I think, to reach a larger audience had they made that push. I don't know. I feel like I'm just rambling at this point.
No, but I can see exactly what you're saying. I mean, if there's an underlining score of what we've all three agreed on throughout these podcasts, especially when Twisted got introduced, was that, they're better than ICP.
Yeah.
Like without a doubt, yeah.
And maybe they're not at everything. I think like storytelling. I think like world building. I think like Violent J has some super strengths in those departments.
And I agree, and I think that's partly also what we all agreed, that we ended up liking ICP a little bit better. Their story arc, I mean, for so many years, the Joker card story arc or just the Dark Carnival in general story arc is brilliant, and to be able to hold it together, create these worlds, and still make it seem new and different, and and them changing up their styles and it being cartoony. For me, sometimes the if the death stuff isn't somewhat funny to me, then it gets like too heavy for me, and I don't like it too much.
Like the death stuff, like murdery stuff.
Yeah, like the murdery stuff,
afterlife stuff.
Not the afterlife stuff, because that's just silly, anyways, and I like that. But no, more like killing women and how they kill women or killing people in general. And just the overall, like ICP, they're clowns, so. There's always like a slapstick to it that makes you be like, oh, that's really gross, but haha. Where sometimes Twisted doesn't have that.
That's true. Yeah.
So it's harder for me to digest Twisted's music sometimes.
Yeah, that's fair. And they're not that funny on,
No,
and I think they're at their best when they're not at all funny, honestly. Like, I think, as people, I like when they're funny, like, or, Big Money Hustlers or something like that. But like, I think some of when they try to be funny on music, I think it can be a little cringy. But yeah, I mean, I think that's inherently the difference, is that like ICP is a comedy group to a degree.
Right.
Yeah.
And they are into this, super nerdy world building, almost Dungeons and Dragons, Lord of the Rings type of shit, which is awesome, that like the original 6 Joker cards and all that stuff. And like, I mean, I remember counting down, the days till the next one was going to come out and what's it going to reveal about, it's like, it's super fascinating and it sucks you in. And I think that like, I mean, Twisted that's not what they do. And it never was. And I think for some people, the link between the two bands, I think, is what holds them back in that regard. In that if they were just a regular ass rap band, they wouldn't be held to those standards, Like, I'm not listening to DMX or whatever. I don't listen to a lot of DMX. I don't know why that was my poll, but I guess I was thinking of like 98 or whatever when they came out. But, I'm not listening to like Lil Wayne for his narrative arc and his, mythos or whatever. But if he was linked up with someone, you know what I'm saying? Like, if,
yeah,
definitely.
And so I think that has been a detriment a little bit, because it's like people outside of that world think that they're all the same thing. And then people inside that world almost see them as just an offshoot of that thing. And I think it's given them like not enough room to grow, maybe. Just because the limited scope. I mean, like, so many people, even now, like I've listened to various podcasts and stuff, and you'll hear over and over again people say like, oh, I haven't really paid attention to anything they've done since they left Psychopathic, but I'm a huge fan. And it's like, what does that mean? That means you just like a record label,
Right.
So that's kind of frustrating. I don't know. It's weird. It's I think we're at an interesting point, and I'm hoping it continues to push forward. Because, like, this album that they just dropped was on the charts for 4 weeks, which is the first time I think that's ever happened for them. And I don't even think the new ICP album was on the charts that long. So
yeah, right. Like ICP drops an album, and there's going to be that core set of people that are absolutely going to buy it.
Yeah.
But I got to say, like, yeah, right. Generation Nightmare is blown away, especially Magic Spells you mentioned earlier. Like, I've been listening, I've played that track multiple times every day
same here.
Since I first heard it.
It's great. It's a great song.
It's
like,
so good.
It's a little lost to time, I think, because I think it's kind of, and I'm not listening to a lot of like whatever's on like modern rock radio. I'm not sure, but, God, I think if that song came out 5-10 years ago, it would have been a smash.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, I agree.
And it's still a smash with me, but like, I think that could have been a big mainstream success of a song. It was like in the era where like say like a Stone Sour or whatever was popping. So yeah, I don't know. It's cool. And I'm glad to see, like, I mean, they've never had a song that sounded like that, which is not something I can say about most bands I've been listening to for 20 years
right.
or, that have been around for 20 years, to take such left turns. And that's, I think, what makes them my favorite, is because from album to album, they changed things dramatically. And like, people don't do that for 20 years, like, I'm trying to think of other acts that have been out for 20 years, but like, I'm not listening to.
I feel like Aerosmith, maybe that might be
yeah, but they, like the new Aerosmith album doesn't have a whole new sound, or like Smashing Pumpkins or something, I mean, like,
sure, yeah,
they kind of do what they do, and sometimes it's better and sometimes it's worse, but it's going to sound like them.
Yeah, I think all of a sudden bust out with a rap album last
right,
year.
Exactly. But like to have someone like Twisted, who it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna adapt with like the new styles of rap. Like, there's like Generation Nightmare. There's a lot of really modern sounding stuff. I think stuff that could play next to someone like Yellow Wolf or Logic or something. That's really popular. And then the next song is like, I mean, that Magic Spells, that's like the hook almost sounds like Def Leppard or something, and then you've got like a Head PE verse. Like it's a lot of it's creative, I mean, they're all over the place and they're willing to be all over the place, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, we talked about that a couple weeks ago. We watched the Magic Spells video, Steve and I, and we talked about it. And one of the points that Steve brought up was this almost like this kind of hardcore feeling, this hardcore band feeling, the way that when they scream on the track. And so you just made me think of that as like kind of really mixing up their sound as being a very unique thing. Whereas ICP, I feel like, are always kind of trying to hit that same note, right? Like they're trying to hit that same sweet spot every time. But I don't really get that from Twisted.
And the thing that I think sucks for ICP is that, like, I think their fans want something very specific from them. And I think that boxes them in a little bit because, like, you can tell over the years, like Violent J specifically, I probably just because he's more vocal, honestly, but like he wants to do stuff that's more positive. He wants to do stuff that's more sing-songy almost. Like you can hear it in, when he kind of gets his way and makes certain albums, but then the fans shit on it. And so he goes back to like, okay, well, we'll make the dark one. We'll make the Wicked album or whatever. Whereas I think, and that's because probably by the time most people came to ICP, they had, a discography already and they were known to do a certain thing. And Twisted from the outset have always, I mean, Freak Show doesn't sound like Most Tasteless, and then Green Book doesn't sound like Freak Show. So it's just like, they've always kind of done that. So I think that is what is expected of them, is to kind of mix it up. Whereas ICP, I think people, they go, we like this thing that you do that, or we're not going to like it as much, which is depressing.
Would you agree that Magic Spells does kind of sound like it could have been on Mutant?
Oh, because yeah. I mean, that's
there's
a
lot of
that.
Yeah, because there's a lot of rap rock on for the lack of a better word, on that Mutant album. And so when we covered both Magic Spells and then Satellite, ICP's latest album, or song or video, I mean. And we both were just like blown away by both videos. Both songs are amazing. And it was funny, even though I knew that Twisted had that sound way back on Mutant, I don't think of Twisted as being a rap rock sounding rap group, and normally, because my favorite songs are far from them. Yeah. And so when I my initial response was, holy crap, I thought Satellite would have been the rap rock song, and then what Twisted put out was just like, what the fuck? Like, it was so awesome. And it was such a flip to me and a big surprise. But they did it so well. And like I said, I've gone back and I was listening to Mutant, and there's not like a technical song on Mutant that sounds like that. Mutant still sounds like they had a band and they like pieced together these different instruments, and it wasn't like a live band necessarily that played. Where this sounds like this is a live. Yeah, like they certainly had a live band make that song. And
and their live drummer actually produced that with a friend of his production partner or whatever. So I think they probably recorded it like a rock band would.
Okay, yeah, it sounds like it, and I don't like music like that, to be perfectly honest. I mean, throughout the 2000s, when the late 90s, 2000s, when rap rock, I mean, I was so into hardcore and punk rock and stuff like that, and then secretly on the side ICP, like I hated rap rock music, and so even when Mutant came out and and they had those songs, I was like, oh, these are weird, and I like these just because it's twisted and it's weird. And I was kind of, obviously ICP with just the guitar tracks always layered in. You just get used to that, and it doesn't, I'm like, oh, that's not rap rock. But,
yeah. But it is.
But it is.
Yeah.
I was, earlier you said if Magic Spells came out 10 years ago, it would be a smash hit. And it's funny because if had that song came out 10 years ago, I would have been like, I'm not listening to that song. That's fucking garbage.
Yeah.
And now here I am. I'm like, oh my God, that song's amazing.
Yeah. And it is a little bit throwbacky in a way that's kind of fun. Like maybe if we were inundated with songs like that every day, it wouldn't feel as unique. I don't know.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, good point.
But I also, the thing is that song I don't even think of as rappy at all. Like the screaming that Jamie does on there has, I guess a cadence that could be similar to rapping, but like, that's pretty much just a straight ahead rock song.
Yeah, that was what Ryan said too. Yeah, that was what Ryan was saying last week.
And I guess apparently there was a verse on it initially, like Jamie laid down a rap verse, and then Paul basically said, cut it. Like that we can't have that on this song. This is a rock song. Yeah. So
incredible, man.
So that was definitely like a choice. But yeah, I think that the live band feel, like you're saying, is the difference there. Whereas like they've had songs like that in the past, but they've been made by producers.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been open about the fact that they've never gotten their rock sound done right. It always sounds like rappers doing a rock song. And I think now that they have, not to say musicians as if the producers they worked with in the past were not musicians, but now that they have musicians playing instruments around, I guess, I think they have more of an ability to do that. And there's really cool stuff on that album that kind of blends those two things in a way that I don't think Magic Spells does. Like the song, If It Doesn't Matter What I Say Now, or whatever that song's called. Like the verses are just straight ahead rap verses that aren't, there's not guitars in the background. There's not like chunky riffs or anything. It's just a rap beat. And then the chorus is like screamed and stuff like that. And I think they've found this little pocket where they can do, like, if rap metal wasn't a derogatory term, that would be the best way to put a lot of what they do.
Yeah, man. I could listen to some of that.
Cause like, what was I going to say? Oh yeah. Like a few years ago, they did a tour with a band, a full band, like guitar, drums, keyboards. And it was jarring to me how well it worked because of that, that stigma of, rap rock or whatever being Limp Bizkit or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell you, put some spooky stuff behind it, make it more of like the thing about like rap rock, I think that sucks is that it's rock guys aping rap in a way that is inherently corny. But the way Twisted would do it is like almost like rap guys aping metal with like the theatrics and the atmosphere of it. But at their heart, they're rappers. Mm. So it works in a way that like a Limp Bizkit is super fucking corny. 'Cause it's just a dude doing an act, basically. I don't know.
Yeah.
Are you going to check them out on this tour? I see they're playing in Portland next Saturday.
Next Saturday, yep. I've got my VIP, which I'm excited and nervous about.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because I met those guys in 2002 on the Mirror Mirror tour, and I have not since. So I'm a little nervous about that. But Jamie has been liking a lot of the posts.
Hell yeah, that's awesome.
So I'm kind of excited to go in and say like, hey, I've run this thing, and just hopefully that's an in on a conversation as opposed to like, I love what you do. It's like I don't know what I'm going to say to like Gmo Ski or, people like that, because like, are you guys familiar with the Magic Ninja roster at all?
No,
not too much. I listened to a few, I checked out a couple of tracks I looked up the bands that are on the label right now and listened to a few of those tracks just before we started recording.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I really think everyone that they have on the label is like super talented and like I listen to those albums all the time. But All Azuli Lu, I would definitely recommend. They are like, there's a lot of juggalos that'll say like fuck Twisted, fuck Magic Ninja, except All Azuli Lu, because they're just like a really good classic, like horrorcore sounding thing.
Horrorcore, yeah.
And their image is really cool and it works. Like I know nowadays when I see someone in face paint or a mask or whatever, I usually immediately think it looks corny. Just because it's not new, you know? And those guys do it in a way that, like, I saw them on a recent tour, and when they came out, it, like, legitimately made me feel a little bit nervous because, like, they're kind of scary.
It seems pretty dark, pretty heavy.
Yeah. But so, like, yeah. Oh, I guess the point of it was, guys like that, I don't know what I'm going to, you know, say to them at a meet and greet. Like, hey, thanks for the work. I don't know. I'm so bad at
you
that
could
shit.
tell them you're scared of them.
Yeah. Well, then I'll just do something to scare me on purpose, and no one wants that. I'm not trying to get spooked at a meet and greet. But
that's fun, man.
Yeah, I'm definitely going. Definitely excited.
I'm going to take this opportunity to say I always try to find something that I can post on the Instagram to complement whatever episode is up that week. And back in 2000, when I went to the first gathering of the Juggalos, me and my buddy were hanging out. I think we were looking at some merch, and there was all this commotion, and there's people coming through the crowd, and it was Monoxide Child, and I ended up getting a photograph with him, just standing next to him, you know, and he scowled at the camera or whatever. So I'm going to throw that up there. That was my closest brush with Twisted as an individual.
Nice.
So I'll put that up on the Instagram.
If you want, I also can dig up, as soon as we get off the phone here, a picture of me at the Mirror in store with those guys when I was probably 13 or 15 or something.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Full face paint and, yeah, just a chubby little, maybe high schooler, maybe middle school. No, I think I was like 15, 2002. Yeah. So I can pull that up and send it too. Which I was planning to find it anyway, because if I wanted to kind of do a compare and contrast when I meet him next week. I'm not going to go painted this time, I don't think, but, you know.
That's awesome, man. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess bringing it back around, so, like, give us a little bit of 411 on, like, what's your goal for this project? Like, do you have an end game in mind? Like, you know, what's going to be your trajectory here moving forward?
I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out right now, because I'm about to get up to the first record, you know, Most Tasteless. Not to say that the House of Crazy stuff wasn't records, but, you know, it's called, you know, Twisted History is the name of the page. So I'm trying to decide how I'm going to approach that, because also when it gets to some of these albums, you know, I have a lot to say, just because I've spent so much time with them. You know, I've got personal stories, I've got history, you know, like biographical context to write in. I've got my takes on the music. So I'm trying to decide right now how to approach that. If I should just write one post, you know, for the album with 100 comments, because there's a character limit on Instagram. And I've already fallen into a hole on a lot of them, you know, where I have to put like the main caption and then like 3 lengthy comments below. For something like a Most Tasteless, that's going to be 15 comments or whatever. So I'm trying to decide if I should do that, if I should do it track by track, if I should do side A, side B, or, you know, things like that. So, to be determined. I got to figure that out in the next couple days, because it's coming up. And then outside of that, I mean, the end game is just, the end game, you know, like keep going until I get caught up to modern times, which at this rate could be 2 years from now, or, you know, Lord knows. The thing that, like, in a perfect world, I'd love for it to be a book. I think I don't know how that works, but like, I think Twisted deserves to have a book, and I don't think they want to write it, because they've said multiple times that they don't want to write it. Because they don't want to, I think there's probably some certain stories they don't want to tell, stuff they contractually can't talk about, because when they left Psychopathic, they signed an NDA. But like, I don't know. I don't think Instagram's the best format for this, but it's the one I'm using right now. I don't think a blog would get any traffic, but like, I would love for it to be something that is in people's face in a more real way, because social media and Instagram's a little bit fleeting. So I think a book would be really cool. But that's like a pipe dream. Outside of that, you know, just to keep moving forward with it, and the other thing I think I like about it being on social media as opposed to like a book is that you can put video in and things like that. And a lot of what, you know, these guys do is really image based. You know, there's a lot of good artwork and face paint, and the merch has a certain thing to it, and that's all kind of part of the story. So I think it's cool to put it into a visual medium like that. But yeah, I don't know. I think that the end game for me right now is just to keep putting it together and keep kind of growing. It's been growing pretty quickly, and I want to keep that pace, and I want to keep, I think I'm trying to hold myself to 2 posts a day. Not like instead of less than that, but instead of more than that, because I get excited and, I've got the next 4 posts planned out already. So it's hard to be like at 10 o'clock at night when I've had, 2 drinks or something, be like, oh, wait till the morning.
Right. When you get excited about it, man.
Yeah.
It's tough.
But yeah, I don't really have an end game, honestly, is the truest answer. It's just kind of keep moving forward with it.
Well, that's awesome, man. I got to say that I've really been enjoying it, man. I'm going to be looking forward to all of your posts. Like it's just a really impressive, undertaking, and I've just been really enjoying it. So really appreciate it, man. I really appreciate you coming on the show. Is there anything else that you want to plug? Anything that you want to share while you're here?
Not really, Twisted History on Instagram. I'm at Late Night Cakes on Twitter, but like I don't really tweet, and I have 9 followers, so there's no real reason to go there. I don't know. Just I would really recommend the Dim Carnival podcast over on iTunes and anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Oh, that's sweet, man.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, Robbie, it's been a super treat to have you on the show. Steve, do you have anything else any other questions, anything you want to get to?
No. Other than just, this has been awesome. It's great talking with you. It's great hearing someone tell their story and have a similar experience and stuff like that. And it's been pretty awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. And anytime, if there's some wild twisted news or you're doing one of the records or something and want to talk about something, I would love to anytime.
Excellent, man.
Right
Excellent.
on.
We'll probably take you up on that.
Sounds good to me.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Robbie, for coming in. Definitely check him out at Twisted History on Instagram. As always, you can find us on social media at Dim Carnival on Instagram and Twitter. If you have any questions or anything that you want to suggest to us, as I said, Bill is being a dad right now. So we love hearing from you guys for giving us suggestions on things that we can talk about in the interim. You can hit us up on Gmail at dimcarnival@gmail.com. And we don't know what we're going to do next week, Steve. I'm probably going to direct you guys to our Instagram. We'll try to tell you what the assignment's going to be next week. But for right now, we don't know what we're going to do. Shit. But until next time, I'm Ryan.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Robbie.
I don't have a fucking smart ass thing to say. But come back, Bill. We miss you, man.